30 years after guiding Nigeria to its first and only Olympic football gold medal at the Atlanta Games in 1996, former Dream Team coach Bonfrère Jo has expressed disappointment over what he described as years of neglect and a lack of recognition from the Nigerian government. From unpaid bonuses and delayed allowances to concerns over healthcare, retirement benefits and career support, many of Nigeria's sporting heroes have repeatedly spoken about the challenges they face long after the spotlight fades.
And the story of Bonfrère Jo is only one chapter in a much larger conversation about the welfare of Nigerian athletes and coaches. Many argue that Nigeria has struggled to build a sustainable system that adequately rewards and protects the men and women who dedicate their lives to representing the nation. So beyond the medals and the national pride, are Nigerian athletes getting the support they deserve? And what reforms are needed to ensure that those who fly the country's flag are not forgotten once the applause dies down? Now, joining us to discuss this crucial issue is former Minister of Youth and Sports, Solomon Dalung. Mr. Dalung, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, having been a minister of Sports, how would you assess the current situation in terms of welfare for our athletes? What would you say is our biggest gap?
Well, the biggest gap, based on my experience as a minister, is first, the Nigerian political elites and administrators are yet to come to terms with what sports represents currently. They still see sports recreation. And so investment in sports had been quite discouraging. And it is the poor investment in sports that is responsible for the also poor welfare scheme for athletes, sports administrators, and all actors in the sport industry. Because if you look at the budgetary allocation for sports, it is so paltry in comparison to what is obtainable in other climes. And then if you look at the attitude, the political will of government towards investing in sports, is also not something that can be taken seriously. And so the sum total of the lack of political will, the lack of looking at sports as a multi-trillion dollar industry, and then the corruption that has been so endemic in the administration of sports, put together, reduce the welfare of sports and then the technical component of sports to the current predicament they find themselves. So I think if we must look at it positively, then take a look at these factors I've enumerated.
Mr. Dalung, I wanted to know, and this is coming off of the issue with Bonfrère Jo from recently, and this also expands to much more than just Bonfrère Jo. There are other sport athletes who would like to have this question answered. I'm wondering, as a sports person who goes out to represent the country, exactly where do I belong? Am I an employee of the government? Am I a beneficiary of support? Or am I just simply volunteering my talent? And I'm asking this regarding welfare. While we're putting these guys out there to represent the country, what welfare comes to them after? Noting how short a lifespan a sports career is when you compare it to other careers. So who do I work for, or how do I apply into the system as an individual who is representing the country when it comes to sports outside of the country?
Well, athletes are not employees of either the government or any of the national federations. They are just patriots who volunteered their skills and talents at a time of need to try to promote the name and image of their country. And this is where the problem lies. And this is also where they are exploited by the sports administrators. Because sport administrators just see them as volunteers. So there is no any contract signed between them and the national or the sporting federations that invited them to camps or invited them to participate in these games. So at the end of the day, there is nothing at all meant for them apart from the allowances and bonuses that the federation design and approve as maybe remuneration for whatever skills they will have contributed. But those who smile home with the huge budget prepared for such tournaments or such competitions are the sport administrators. Because if they win, they take more of the glory because they are employee of the National Federation and some of them are employee of the federal government. Some of the national federation, like the Nigerian Football Federation, takes direct funding from the federal government. So the Secretary General and all other officials there are more or less employees of the federal government because they are paid from budgetary allocations. But for the athletes, they are just like laborers hired for maybe skilled labor. And when it's time, they are just given peanuts as allowances or bonuses for whatever they would have been able to achieve. If they fail to achieve, of course, they live only on their bonuses and allowances. But if they succeed, then they benefit from this scheme I designed while in office, that any athlete who earned a gold medal will have $5,000 and silver $3,000 and then bronze $2,005. I don't know whether they have sustained the scheme up till now or they have improved on it, but that was one of the initiatives I introduced while in office. While in office, I actually dealt with this problem of the welfare of athletes, but the report was abandoned immediately I left office because I set up a sport.
Yeah, in fact, you did, sir. And I remember this. In 2018, you said athletes' welfare was to be prioritized. In March of 2019, you said government would stop funding what you described as excessive sports federations. You stop the excesses in sports federation and instead direct investments towards athletes and coaches. But in the same 2018, we had a situation where the Falconets were not paid their allowances. So I'm wondering how come you as sports minister back then recognize the problem, proffer a solution, and yet in 2026, we're still having that issue now. Where did that problem come from? Did it come from the authorities or the administration or the machinery when you were in office, or is it from after? Has it persisted, or is it getting any better, would you say?
Well, in 2018, the problem of the Falconets was just I had to sacrifice my name to be attacked, to be abused, to save the government. But the problem basically was not from me because I raised a memo for that competition 3 months, and the memo was in the office of the president for 3 months without response. I made repeated visits to the villa and nobody attended to me. So I decided to travel in solidarity with the team, and I was in Cameroon when they won the trophy, and we came back together. But shortly have we arrived in Nigeria, those who sat on the memo rushed to the airport to receive the team, took them to the State House, and called me to say, they were here protesting. And I said, I'm also coming with my own leave, which will be bigger because I will join them in the protest. Because the memo for their allowances had been sitting or sleeping in the office of one of the persons in the presidency. Immediately I said that, he hung up, and they got money from nowhere and paid them and they left on. So I just decided to take, just like Jesus took the cross of humanity. Yeah, to take the cross of that wrongdoing so that to protect the government. Because if I had come up to tell Nigerians that, look, a memo meant to provide funds for this team was sleeping in one of the offices for over 3 months in the presidency, of course, that would have been too damaging for the government. So for the government to be blamed, I preferred to carry the cross like Joseph of Arimathea, who helped Jesus to Golgotha, but the problem wasn't from me at all. Now, why has the problem persisted? You see, many people who are in sports administration are not there because they have passion for sports, but they are there because of the very lucrative and cheap funds available, unaccountable funds that are available for them there. You see, in sports, the sports administrator work harder for failure than success. Because if the team fail, they have more money to smile home with than the team succeeding. Because the sum total of all the allowances and the benefits of the team is computed from the beginning and handed over to the federation. So if Nigeria crashed at the group of 16, first round, the entire budget to finance has been handed over to the federation. So they can only just pay for the allowances and bonuses of that round of 16. The players will live for the various team in bitterness and anger, while they will smile back home with their bank accounts pregnant.
Mr. Dalung,
with the balance.
Mr. Dalung, yes, you've mentioned a lot of issues in terms of there are people sitting on allowances that's meant to go to the people who have worked for it. Now, I think my question is, surfing through the internet, you see all the complaints as to allowances, how we're losing athletes to other countries. And it seems like when it's time for the World Cup or whatever competition, it seems like Nigerians just like the name of being a part of. So would you say outrightly that we are the mastermind of our own downfall because we're not doing what needs to be done to make sure that our team are being taken care of and strengthened? Because if these are the issues they're having to go through now, down to even borrowing equipment when they go for competition, what fate is our sports team going to face in the next few years? Are we going to lose them completely if this continues?
In the next few years, I'm not trying to be a prophet of doom, but the future of Nigerian sports will be that we might hardly find people to hire for these dirty jobs where they go, they participate. Sometimes there are no equipment for them to participate. They have to borrow. We'll not find them because, you see, countries invest in talent and they pay heavily to sustain such talents. So if you have a talent that you don't care to invest in it, the moment you put it out internationally, the other countries will just come and buy the talent over and then they use it. So Nigeria is more or less like a discovery camp for talent. But where they are utilized is out there, not for Nigeria. And if we continue like this, I don't think we'll be able to win a bronze in future in any of the sports except for exceptional skills or patriotic Nigerians who will want to wear the green, white, green, that will want to come up. But it is going to be very, very difficult because it's getting worse, like the way things are going. But the problem basically is that the political leadership is not interested in solving the problems of sports. Those who have been accused of corruption in sports are still there. In fact, one of the battles I ran while in office was that I took some people to FCC to investigate them. And of course, yes, it turned back a report to me that 4 people were accused of squandering over 11 billion within the 2 or 3 years period. The case was filed in court, but sadly, the Attorney General went there and withdrew the case. So providing shelter and protection for them. How will you expect sports to grow under the circumstance where people are not sanctioned and wrongdoing is more or less emboldened and encouraged? We need to come up much stronger and
Mr.
deal with
Dalung.
this issue.
Mr. Dalung, sorry to butt in, but we only have time for one more question, and I'm going to ask that you be summary. But taking a look back at the Bonfrère Jo case and the complaints that were made to him, he did redeem some of these promises, but it took 24 years for one of these promises to be fulfilled. And for most sports people who are putting their names and their bodies on the line for PR for Nigeria, I'm wondering what a sports person noting that this is perhaps, well, just a promise and might not be executed, what should they have in mind when they are faced with these instances where they are made promises to? Do they need to have these perhaps notarized or like, what's the word now, officially stated to them in pen and paper and signature that we would be giving these and that as welfare after your achievements for the country? What should a young sports person know if they are faced with these kinds of issues?
You see, this is something that some of those promises are just mere political promises that successive governments may not lay hand on any document to implement them. Yeah, the dream team that won the first cup, Coca-Cola Cup in 1985, it was in 2015 that when we came to office, and that I went to Jos and saw one of them who was now unable to even fit. And immediately he mentioned his name. I remembered it. So when I came back, I told the president that, look, I met one of the players of 1985 in Jos, and I couldn't recognize him. Babangida Yaros or something like that. I've forgotten his name. And Buhari said, what? I said, yes. So he said, oh, I have reminded him. Let me go around and fish them out, those that are living, so that he can redeem that promise. And I went round and got them. Only one person was late, and he was represented by his son. And they came, he brought them to the villa and redeemed the pledge he made to them. But you can imagine, they were already old. Some of them could not even sustain themselves. You wouldn't believe that these were the people whom we saw when they were younger. So it's a very serious situation. And it's a promise that they cannot enforce because it's not committed in writing. It's just a statement by a political figure while receiving them. He's happy to receive the cup and he made promises. Where will you find the promise to enforce? Sometimes when you go pressing hard for this, you run into muddy waters with the establishment. So it's unfortunate, but for the young people, I don't want them to abandon their country because they have no other country than this. I believe that in future, we may have younger people who will be able to provide political leadership that will invest in sports, see sports as business, and use it to create employment for our young people. But for now, I doubt where we're heading to, really.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Solomon Dalung, for joining us and having this conversation. Of course, from football pitches to athlete tracks, Nigerian athletes have given the nation moments of joy, pride, and international recognition. Yet, for many of them, life after the medals is often marked by uncertainty and neglect. The challenge before policymakers is not simply to celebrate victories, but to build a sports system that values and protect those who make those victories possible. And hopefully this will be sorted soon.